The hospital air hung heavy, thick with antiseptic and dread. Shadows stretched from the corners, cast by the dim nightlights. Each ward hummed with a low thrum of fear and whispered prayers, a symphony of beeps and sighs. Dr. James grimaced. The weight of 1,000 stories pressing down. He knew the silent language of the hospital. Green meant hope. Red whispered of the abyss. Every wristband a silent testament. A frantic nurse intercepted him, her face etched with urgency. She grabbed his arm, her grip tight, almost desperate. "Dr. James, you need to come quickly," she said, her voice trembling slightly.
The supply closet, decimated by the day's chaos, needed restocking. Shelves were bare and supplies were scattered everywhere. It was a scene of utter disarray, a testament to the day's relentless demands. "Basement, Dr. James. Left of the morgue," she instructed, her eyes wide with fear. The word sent a chill down his spine.
Morgue. The very mention of it made his heart race. The place was always shrouded in an eerie silence, a silence that seemed to echo the finality of death. The word clung to the air like a phantom, lingering long after it was spoken. It was as if the very walls of the hospital whispered it back to him. The lift arrived with a groan and a lone figure stepped in. The sound echoed in the empty hallway, amplifying the sense of isolation. A woman draped in shadows, her face obscured by a dark veil. Her silence was unnerving. She stood still, almost like a statue, her presence adding to the growing tension. Dr. James averted his gaze, the silence in the lift deafening. He could feel her eyes on him, but he dared not look. The air was thick with unspoken words. He pressed the button for the basement, his reflection in the metallic doors, a stranger, eyes haunted. The face staring back at him seemed older, wearier. The lift lurched downwards, the fluorescent lights flickering, mirroring the unease twisting in his gut. Each flicker seemed to pulse with his growing anxiety, casting fleeting shadows that danced on the walls. Each floor seemed to amplify the silence, a silence so profound it felt almost tangible, pressing against the ears. The air grew colder, the metallic scent of the lift replaced by a damp, earthy odor, reminiscent of old, forgotten places. A chill snaked down Dr. James's spine, a foreboding sense of dread settling in his gut. The lift shuddered to a halt. Basement. The word echoed in his mind, heavy with unspoken fears. The doors stuttered open, revealing a dimly lit corridor, shadows dancing on the walls as if alive. And then he saw him, a figure emerging from the gloom. A man stood at the far end, his back to Dr. James, unmoving, almost statue-like. He was tall, gaunt, almost skeletal, his presence both haunting and sorrowful, his gown hanging loosely on his frame, swaying slightly with an unseen breeze.
He turned, his face obscured by the shadows, features hidden in the murk. But one detail pierced through the gloom, a crimson band, vivid and stark against the pallid skin of his wrist. Red, a color that screamed of danger and urgency.
Panic seized Dr. James. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing like a drum in his ears. He slammed his fist against the door, close button, the lift doors groaning shut just as the figure lurched forward. Safe, he was safe. Or so he thought.
The woman in the lift shifted, her veiled face turning towards him. "What's wrong, doctor?" Her voice was calm, almost too calm.
Her voice was a hushed whisper, barely audible over the hum of the lift. Dr. James stammered, "That man, he had a red wristband." His voice trembled, betraying his fear. A moment of silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken horror. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Then a soft chuckle escaped the woman's lips, breaking the silence. It was a sound that sent chills down his spine. She raised her hand, a delicate wrist emerging from the folds of her sleeve. The movement was slow, deliberate. On it, a band of crimson gleamed under the lift's flickering light. The sight of it made his blood run cold. A smile spread across her face, slow and predatory, and Dr. James felt a terror he had never known. It was as if the walls of the lift were closing in on him.